Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 7th and tonight's movie is X. Okay, this is like the really big second chance type of thing I planned for this month. I am watching an entire trilogy of movies for the next 3 days: X, Pearl, and Maxine, all for the sake of giving a fair shake to two people. The director, Ty West. I don't know if it's Ty West or T West. I feel like it's Ty West. And the actor, Mia Goth. Ty West has been making movies for years, and I had seen two of his films so far: The House of the Devil, which I thought was so boring, and The Sacrament, which I had a problem with because it presented a version of the Jonestown events, changing names, but like beat for beat, it was the same thing, except they completely removed the socialism aspect when in reality it was pretty much the opposite. It was more about socialism than it was about religion. I'm not going to say I know why this happened. I'm just going to say I thought it was weird and I didn't like it. But this trilogy of movies has become a lot more mainstream. And we also have Mia Goth. I've definitely seen at least two movies she's been in: the Suspiria remake and The Survivalist. I don't remember her at all in the Suspiria remake. Nobody looked good in The Survivalist because that movie was dog water. But this is a trilogy of movies where she is the lead in all of them. I definitely know Mia Goth and her transparent eyebrows, but I haven't really seen her acting talent be put on full display, and I'm hoping to see that in these movies, which I have no doubt will happen. The movie X takes place in the 70s, where this crew is filming a pornographic film, and they're doing it at a farm. But apparently, the weird old people who own the farm don't actually know what they're doing. I don't know what they told them. I don't know what lie they came up with. But it's revealed that at the very least, the old lady is not the most mentally stable individual. Mia Goth plays the lead, a young woman named Maxine. I don't think she's like a star. I don't even know if she's in the cast, but she wants to be a star. And she also plays the crazy old lady in like old age makeup. It's funny, she was in the Suspiria remake, and in that movie, Tilda Swinton played multiple roles, and one of them was an old man. Brittany Snow is also in this movie. I definitely know what that name is. I haven't heard of anybody else in this. I might have seen them in something, but I'm pretty bad with names. Anyway, I've heard that this movie is good, and I hope it is, because if not, I got two more of these movies to watch. I'm gonna go check it out and let you know what I think. Finally, I get to say something I haven't been able to say in a while. That movie was pretty good. It's probably the best I've seen so far this month. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Before getting into the review, I just want to acknowledge the fact that there is a lawsuit going on against Mia Goth because an extra alleges that she purposely kicked him in the head while he was lying on the ground. I have no idea if this is true. I have no opinion on this. I just want it to be known. I'm not ignoring this or brushing this under the rug up until right now because I don't know what to say about it. Okay, moving on. I think the thing that this movie really has going for it is a very interesting cast of characters. Considering the whole showbiz type of thing, I was expecting most of these people to be bad to worse, but they all just kind of seem fairly normal. The crew for this film is made up of three different couples. You got Maxine and the producer, I guess, named Wayne. You got the director, RJ, and his girlfriend, who's like working the sound, Lorraine. And then you got the two stars of this movie: Bobby Lynn, played by Brittany Snow, and Jackson, played by Kid Cudi. I didn't recognize him, at least from the trailer, because they used his real name instead of, the stage name I actually know him by. I guess one thing that the movie is trying to play off of is that even if we don't want to or don't try to, we have assumptions we make about people who do NSFW work. And while it's certainly not that none of these assumptions are founded, at least when it comes to the characters in this movie, some of them definitely aren't. Two of my favorite characters in this movie were Bobby Lynn and Jackson, the two stars of the pornographic movie that they make. They were both entertaining throughout the whole movie, and as the movie goes on, they actually reveal themselves to be very chill, normal, down to earth, nice people. The sound person, Lorraine, the girlfriend of the director, she at the beginning is like very quiet, reserved, shy, It's implied that she's Catholic because she has like one of those necklaces, and the producer calls her church mouse because she doesn't talk much. She started out seeming like that standard like horror survivor type. And I'm not going to say that she went bad, but there was a point in the movie where nothing she did made any sense. On at least three occasions, there was a moment where I stopped and it was like, wait, why is she doing this? Where did this come from? The only characters I really didn't care for out of the crew, at least, are the two main ones, or at least the ones who you think are going to be the two main ones at the beginning, Maxine and Wayne. Wayne is basically a character I was expecting to see a lot more of in this movie. He's just like haughty, he's selfish. He definitely seems to have a very dim view of women in general based on the things that he says to other men in private. And Maxine was just kind of like one note, like throughout the whole movie. She was just kind of like, I will be a star. The world's gonna know my name. I deserve this life. And she was just kind of self centered, and that was it. And then we also had the two antagonists of this movie, the old man and old woman on the farm. As previously mentioned, the old lady, Pearl, is played by Mia Goth in old age makeup. And I definitely would have been able to put together that this wasn't a real old woman. I wouldn't be able to immediately put together that that was Mia Goth, however. Though the husband, Howard, is played by a man who actually was in his 60s. And that means this movie might have the most awkward to film scene I've ever even heard of in the history of cinema, because there's a scene where Howard and Pearl get a little touchy feely with each other. And just that concept is so weird to think about in my mind. It's not really the age gap thing, but it's also just the fact that one person actually is older and the other one is a younger person pretending to be older. That's just kind of weird in my mind. If it wasn't for this cast of characters, this would just be any old slasher because I didn't really find much spectacular about the horror in this movie. It was okay. There were a few predictable scares, there were a few predictable deaths. Overall, I didn't think there was anything absolutely revolutionary about this movie. It was engaging from beginning to end. This is definitely my favorite Ty West movie I've ever seen, and also my favorite Mia Goth movie I've ever seen. And I'm really curious as to what the next two movies, Pearl and Maxine, are going to do with this. Now I want to talk about some spoilers. I thought the star of the show was Mia Goth, not as Maxine, but as Pearl. It's shown in this movie that at least one of Pearl's motivations for being a killer, I assume we'll find out more in the Pearl movie, which is a prequel, but one of her motivations is that she's very bitter about the fact that she used to be young and beautiful, like all the pretty young things that are now on her farm, but she's aged out of that and she feels like she's lost a lot of her worth to society and maybe even to herself. She calls all the young women whores. She kills the men who don't want her physically. And she also sexually assaults Maxine while she's sleeping. So there's that. Throughout most of the movie, I was assuming it was just going to be a subversion of expectations because the old man seems really dangerous and the old woman just seems like harmlessly confused. And I thought that the reveal was going to be that she's an absolute psycho and he's like kind of scared of her. Like he said, don't disturb my wife. He was trying to protect them from her, not her from them. That's definitely not the case. He does do two kills in this movie, I think. So it seems more like he's her partner in crime as opposed to being complicit. The first half of the movie is just the setup, establishing like every character and that type of stuff. And then the second half goes by pretty quickly. Like a lot of the deaths happen in relatively quick succession. Before long, the only ones left are Lorraine and Maxine. For most of this final act, Lorraine had been locked in the cellar and she did use a hatchet to try to break open the door, but she also got like a bunch of fingers and one of her hands broken by Howard like hitting it with a hammer when she tried to like reach her arm through and unlock the door. Anyway, that super awkward scene I mentioned earlier happens where Howard and Pearl are going at it. And this was like right after they entered the guest house when almost everybody else was dead. And earlier we saw Maxine go hide. And they sort of forgot about that. And they were talking with each other about, like, do you still love me the way you used to? Do you still think I'm beautiful? And while they were doing this, I was thinking, you know what would be the funniest thing ever? If while they start going at it, it reveals that Maxine was actually hiding under the bed they're doing it on, and that exact thing happens. That was very amusing. She like army crawls away and she tries to escape, but she hears the voice of Lorraine. And remember when I said that her actions stop making sense? Earlier in the movie, seemingly out of nowhere, she volunteered to perform in this film, even though her boyfriend, the director, clearly wasn't cool with that. But then when that guy, RJ, runs off all sad in the middle of the night and goes on to become the first kill, when she realizes that he's gone, she's like, oh, I hope he doesn't leave me. I didn't mean to make him feel bad. And it was like, what? And then later, when she finally gets let out of the basement and she saw a dead body in there, she knows how serious the situation is. When she gets freed by Maxine, she starts yelling at her, saying that she hates her and this was all her fault, which, like, no. I'm thinking back to this moment and I can't even put together what she was supposed to be referring to with that. But she does the classic, I hate you, runs off, gets killed. She gets killed by a shotgun, and we actually see a very good practical gore effect of her dead body. But when she like coughs a little bit, she scares the old man, Howard, and they keep saying that he has like a very sensitive heart, and he has a heart attack and dies. And Maxine uses that as her opening to leave. She gets the gun that was in the glove box of their van, and Pearl gets the shotgun, and they both try to fire at each other, except the little handgun, I don't think was loaded ever, and the recoil of the shotgun knocks her, like, out the front door and, like, breaks her hip when she lands on the ground and she can't get back up, so Maxine can just, like, walk out. And you know what? She probably would have just drove off if Pearl didn't want to like curse at her a bit more and insult her a little bit more. So she backs up the car, even though Pearl's head is very much in the way of the car, and then drives off and says, that'll be our little secret. And also throughout this entire movie, they kept cutting to this televangelist on the TV who was like preaching a sermon. And I really didn't know what they were trying to say with that. Maybe there was like some moral grandstanding about how, hey, they're judging these people for making sex movies, but they kill people. But then at the very end, it's revealed that Maxine is actually that specific preacher's estranged daughter. And I don't really know what effect that's supposed to have on me. That was just kind of confusing. The movie is bookended by the local police investigating the scene of the crime, and at this point, it is a bloodbath. And the last part of it is one of them finding the camera, and they say, what do you think is on this? And then the chief goes, whatever it is, it's probably one hell of a horror movie. And I thought that was a pretty cool way to end the movie. I did like this movie, but I'm even more interested in what Pearl is going to show us tomorrow because it's about Pearl being young as Mia Goth, not in old age makeup. And I guess it's going to give us context for how she ended up being the way that she was. But until then, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.